Hello, everyone. Anything to anybody?
Hello. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Friday, the December 22nd, and I am very happy to have Darryl Robert Schoon with me tonight. Darryl, welcome.
How you doing, David? Good to be here.
Good.
I
So
know.
you don't worry about anything now.
No concern.
Just
I
focus.
because I don't
Do
know what's
you
going
do
to
you
happen.
do and do you in looking back now? Is it better to take it day by day, or to do your affirmations?
I can't say that, about it, okay? Because I think I was supposed to do the affirmations I was supposed to. I was supposed to let go and have all hell break loose. And I have done affirmations since then, on and off, but never with that same intensity that I did then. Never, because I that I'm taken care of. I learned that life is eternal. And I know that at a level I didn't know then. I mean, I have learned certain things. I mean, I'm 78, David. If I haven't learned some shit, then my life really has been wasted, you know? But the thing is, I haven't learned what other people have learned. I think I learned what I was supposed to learn. Like you've learned what you were supposed to learn. Your father was there. I know that because he was supposed to tell you those things. You were supposed to know enough to follow me, to try and find me,
Yeah.
and to learn everyone here has learned what they're supposed to learn. No one is a fool. We have been fooled. And now an awakening is going to happen. All right. And the purpose of the awakening isn't so much understanding. I want to say this cataclysm that we're going to have, the purpose of it is not to have is not to do it only. The real purpose of this cataclysm is emotional. That's really its purpose. The shift is emotional. Because for the past 2,000 years, our minds have been in control of the process. Mental. We've been mental. We've been running it mental, mental, mental. That's why the male side has always been put above the feminine side. Women are seen as emotional, men are more rational. Women don't control their emotions, men can. What we didn't know about controlling the emotions is that what the emotions were for. The emotions were feedback. And what we didn't like the negative feedback. So we started shutting down our emotions because we wanted to get ahead. We only wanted the good stuff. What we didn't realize the consequence of shutting down the emotional loop. And what we were doing was that's why the worst parts just we never dealt with. The only time you deal with that shit is when you became an alcoholic. You couldn't deal with it anymore, or some traumatic thing happened, or well, I took acid. It seeped in. But the loop of life is both. It's thought, creation, and feeling. And basically, the creation that we've been trying to get to, the male side, has been without feeling. Artificial intelligence. Thought. The male side. Get rid of that goddamn messy, goddamn feeling crap. You know? And what we've done with it, we've created an imbalanced creation that's destroyed itself. We don't respect life. We don't respect that at all. We've created a distorted reflection of what things are. And the universe, which lets us have our way because it is built on free will. Free will, in my opinion, was built in the core of the universe. When that which is all became the many, she gave itself free will in the process. It wasn't going to shackle itself as it split off into the many. And so we have the free will here. The Zoroastrians, the oldest religion on the face of the earth, knew that. That's what that's the oldest religion. It predates the Hebrew, predates the Vedic thought, came out of Iran until they got their asses kicked out by the Muslims. Free will was baked into the cake. And that's why we're experiencing this. Because
Yeah, and that's
this
why
point,
bad things happen in life.
because you learn from them, hopefully. That's why I had to go through my adversity. I ended my taught my book with that saying, that the faith that I have, David, and I have faith because I know what it's like not to have it. Because I started out without faith, with only fear and holy fucking shit, what's going on? I have a huge amount of faith. All right, that I learned through the trial by fire. You know, and the heat in the trial by fire is a lot more than I would have wanted in my life. If I had known beforehand, I wouldn't have done it. But life always said, well, Darryl, do you want this? Yeah. Then you want to do it? Okay. You know, without really knowing what was going to happen.
Well, you hit on the magic word, and I think that is the biggest motivator, demotivator for most humans is fear. It's probably one of the worst emotions.
Oh, it'll freeze you. It'll paralyze you. And I was a victim, and we're all victims of our own fear. Outside forces play on that fear, but we have to own it. We have to own it. And that's what Don Juan told Carlos Castaneda. And he said, humanity is nothing but pieces of meat that's controlled by outside forces. And Carlos says, well, how do you control us? Do they whisper in our ear at night? And Don Juan said, they're a lot smarter than that. He said, they infected you with their fear. He said, when that happened, humanity became an automaton, even though it thinks it's free. And that's what the manuscript of survival said. He said, Don Juan called these the predator force. He said they're predators, and they lived off of humanity. And he said, once they came, we're not like we were before. That's the part I was looking for survival, the manuscript of survival to affirm that statement. And I know it's in there because they just said the same thing. They said beings from another planet who didn't treat their planet any better than you're treating yours blew up their planet, and they found a home here, and they've taken over your planet and you. And that's what it is.
And they never learned.
So they're in our mind. They never, and that's what he said. They never learn. And he said their time is up, because the critical piece is that humanity had to learn the lesson it had to learn. They've been brutal, but we've had to learn them, and now it's cut time, and now it's changing. The universe is making a move, and it's going to interject itself, even though it almost never does because of free will. But it's doing so to save the Earth. It's not going to allow us to trash the goddamn place that has taken care of us for all these years. We're gonna, you know, and manuscript of survival said, you guys have made it. You guys have made the turn. You're going to survive. But the ones who are going to be able to stay here ultimately and come back and incarnate are the ones who see things differently. The other one,
that's talked. Yeah. Well, that's what you just described is actually sort of how the Book of Revelation talks about it as well.
I think so. I think the Book of Revelation saw it. They couldn't frame it in such a way, but fuck, you're sitting on an island eating figs. You get a vision. They're not going to say, on your cell phone, we're going to be. They're going to say that shit. People aren't going to believe you anyway. So he got a vision. John of Patmos saw the vision, wrote it down, talked about the end of days, talked about how all these resolutions are going to come, and it's going to work out. And here we are. We're here. And I tell you, I have faith. That's what I have. That's what's developing me. And I said in one of the things I wrote, I said, the faith that I achieved came through adversity. And I said, humanity is going to get the opportunity to learn the same way. Through adversity. I fell into that adversity. I at least had a forewarning of what would happen. I gave up my affirmations willingly the first time. And then all hell broke loose. And the second time, I gave them up willingly again. Because I knew the truth of those words. There are learning situations that you need that you will not allow in because of your use of thought. You have to let go if you want to learn. Well, I wanted to grow, I wanted to learn, but if they said you're going to have a 10-year prison sentence, I said, fuck you, homie. Next time.
Right.
So they didn't
Right.
tell me that because they knew I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. No.
So they got I call that a controlled assent, a partial okay, and I gave it. And most people don't even have that. Most people
Yeah.
just written into the cake. So I've been lucky. I am the luckiest person I know. I want to tell you about luck because remember you said about gratitude. You said it the one I think one of our last things. You said, you know what? I wake up and I'm thankful. I'm thankful. I'm thankful. I'm thankful.
Absolutely, every day.
And you know what? And that's the key. If you can find the thankfulness, it'll get you through what's coming up. All right. There was a thing on affirmations before we even got into affirmations. All right, about getting what you want. I was coming off my first wife and I, he was in the Haight-Ashbury. We're coming off of LSD. Okay. And she said these words I never fucking forgot. These words. You can never have it the way you want it. Which is not to say it cannot be exactly as you want it. Only you can never own it, for it is only lent and must be renewed with thanks at every moment. 1969, Haight-Ashbury.
I think you have a photographic memory.
For certain things like that. I mean, those were words you don't, holy shit. Holy shit. You can never have it the way you want it, which is not to say it cannot be exactly as you want it. Only you can never own it, for it is only lent and must be renewed with thanks at every moment. Hippies were into sex, drugs, and rock and roll and spirituality and God. And everybody focused on the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And we were into that shit. Let me tell you, I was there. But the God part, that was where the answer was.
Yeah.
That's where it drew us.
Yeah, it's fleeting. So do you? I'm just curious. Do you believe? Okay, I know you've mentioned that you believe that all of us are eternal beings,
Yes,
and do you
absolutely.
believe? And do you believe that you will actually see the being that was your mother, your father, your friends,
Yes,
and
I
you'll
have
know?
talked to them. I have had conversations with them. I mean, you know what? I told people that Tucson changed me as much as the Haight-Ashbury did. Everybody knows about the hate. Everybody knows about Janet Shaw. Everybody knows about, we've all seen pictures of it. The kids went freaky, we're sitting there panhandling. Shit happened. Yeah, well, it was good. I don't know. Hope you didn't get crap. No, I didn't. Everybody knows about San Francisco. But I fell into that. 1 moment I'm in fucking law school. The next year I'm living on Haight Street. People are driving by, coming up, showing us pictures of their kids, asking if we've seen them. I mean, I'm in the middle of it. Not just there. I mean, I'm in the fucking middle. Yeah. Then, for some reason, we end up in Tucson. And man, did we find out what's going on in this little burg. We ran into this spiritual thing that almost nobody, but it sits here. And that's where I ran into that psychic. I know the top psychics on the planet. I have heard things. I have seen. You know what? I know why I didn't believe in psychic shit before I believed in it. I know why I didn't believe in God or the universe or UFOs before I believed in it. I know why. Because when you don't believe in it, you shit don't believe in it. And you can't believe somebody else just because they believe. And if you do, you're a fool. You're a fool if you do that. And these are things that just aren't easy things to believe in. All right? So, but before I went in that room and handed that guy that piece of paper who said you're a teacher and people are going to begin seeking you out.
Yeah.
Before he went in that room, Martha went in there.
Yeah.
She's walking back. I have no idea what happened to her. She looks like she's got a, I mean, I've never seen her look like that. And this is what she tells me happened to her. She hands her piece of paper to Hoyt, the psychic. He's holding on to the piece of paper, doesn't read it. She said she was so nervous, she folded it so small a piece, it looked like a spit wad. He's holding on to it. And he goes, there's a Cosette here. Martha goes, that's my mother. Not a common name, Cosette. And he goes, there's a Jim. But you wrote down James. And he wants to know why. You called him Dad. And he wanted you to call him Daddy. Man. Fucking had her relative with her father to a T. To a T. Martha's father was in the military. Her little war with him. She was a pacifist. We're in the 60s. She called her father Dad. And she knew he wanted to call her Dad. That was that little war. All right? But Martha said she wasn't prepared for the moment where Hoyt Robinette, the psychic, sitting in front of her, his quiet spoken Southern guy, sat up in the chair, ramrod straight, and started talking to her as her father.
That'll make you believe, right?
Jim Hildahl sat up and looked at Martha and said, well, now I've got the floor and I'm going to use it. Somebody's asking the questions, and here are the answers. Martha and her father, military, huge vocabulary. Martha said, it was Dad. And he answered every one of her questions, 1 through 5, by the number.
Wow.
Answer to question number 1. Boom. Yeah, you and Darryl go. When she was walking back down that hallway, she had a look on her face that I never could believe. Now, my thought is this. If you are supposed to believe this shit, something's going to happen in your life that'll convince you. And if you're not supposed to. We are born blind on the path for a reason. We are born blind without any idea of who we are for a reason, and it's not a punishment. We are from the source itself born into a situation where we appear temporary, at risk, and at hazard, and alone. Very uncomfortable place. And the incentive is to find out otherwise, to find out the truth. So we are each born into to learn things. Certain lives you come back to learn this, certain lives you come back to learn that. You know, I mean, the Hindus, the Vedic, they were in the reincarnation since the get-go. And you know, the Hebrews, they were into that shit. Until they voted it out of the Council of Trent, the Catholics did, and astrology in 600s lost by a fucking vote. I mean, when John the Baptist came back screaming at the Jews, telling them what a bunch of assholes they were, and they better get their fucking trip together, or God's going to come and burn their asses with wrath. They looked at him and said, are you Isaiah? Are you Isaiah? Why? Because Isaiah the prophet used to scream at him the same motherfucking way. So they already knew about reincarnation. Because the motherfucker was screaming at him just like Isaiah did. But we filtered it out. It's gone. And now we're in a high-tech superstition. Great. Is it around? I don't know. But what I do know, David, runs against the grain. And I'm so goddamn glad to run against the grain. Because if I did, I'd be stateless. I'd be fucked up, and I'm not. I turned to Martha. I said, you know what? I'm the happiest I've ever been. And I've had a lot more money. I know what it's like to stay in suites in Paris and eat in private dining rooms. You know, drive around Marshall's Rolls Royce. You know, my friends, you know, Porsche that needed platinum plugs just to, so, you know, so ran so hot. I know what that's like, you know. And to get to this place, a prison that I could deal with it and see it for what it is, so be it. I give thanks for that because without it, I didn't see it. I didn't get it. I didn't know it. There was no way for me to know it. No way for me to know it. The only way you get over being scared is being to have the shit scared out of you. You know, I used to say that being a drug dealer, I was like an accountant trapped in a pirate.
You were like a what?
I had to learn about an accountant trapped in the body of a pirate.
Oh. Yeah. Well, in the United States, it's the United States is a different country than a lot of other countries, like just Mexico.
It is.
In that
Oh,
everything in the United States,
is,
we judge like men in the United States. Most men, like older generations, would judge their what's the word I'm looking for? Their self-worth by their net worth.
of course, by their money.
Right.
Because everybody came from nothing. Yes. Because everybody who came to the United States came from shit. If you had shit, you didn't come here. Why would you? Why would you leave your mother, your father, your friends? You had shit when you came here.
Yeah.
That's the only reason you motherfucking came.
Yeah. Economic opportunity or.
Absolutely. And we grabbed the goddamn land from the Indians and called them Indian givers. You know about gold? You know, everybody's worried, you know, the fucking United States government took our gold from us, took our gold from us, took our gold from 1930. Remember Roosevelt took our goddamn motherfucking Democrat took our gold from us. Son of a stole our gold. You know where that gold came from?
Which gold?
Mines. The gold that was in the United States at the time.
Oh, okay.
During the Depression, when they made gold illegal, the proxy for gold was the shares in Homestake Mining Company. Okay.
Yeah, and that went up. That went up like 5 or 10 times.
Oh shit! It went up 1,000 times.
Oh, 1,000.
You had 10% of your portfolio. Yes, counting dividends. If you had 10% of your portfolio,
you did well.
The shares of Homestake Mining in 1928, in 1938 or 37. When the Dow was down 90%, you were even. You were even. It was a proxy for gold. It was the largest gold mine in the world. You know where that mine is? In the Badlands.
Oh, the
Badlands. Given to the Sioux.
Yeah.
It was given to the Sioux Indian Nation as a part of the treaty.
Okay.
As a part of the motherfucking treaty. Say where you motherfucking are, will be the shit ass piece of land, and we won't come after you.
Yeah. They didn't know it had. They didn't know. They didn't know it had gold when they gave it away.
Oh. And then they took it back.
Of course.
All right. Now, in my book, Time of the Vulture, I wrote about published in 2007. Said there were 7 markers, I think, that would determine if America would fulfill its destiny and lead the world again. Not lead it because it had all the guns and power, but lead it because it had the leadership that the world needed. And I had these markers on how you could judge America. And one of them was a Native American. There was a trust fund set up for all indigenous peoples in the Bureau of the Interior in the United States. And into that fund was paid royalties. And this was set back in, I don't know, 1800s, you know, whatever it was. Okay? Royalties on lands and mining royalties and shit like that. And I said, I wrote the book in 2007. I said, there's never been an audit. They refused to audit it.
Same thing with the mint. Yeah.
The mint. They never audited it.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we have the wherewithal to lead. Well, you know what? The Indians finally got to court and they demanded an audit. And the court held an audit wasn't justified. Wasn't justified. Okay? Sure, we know why. But they gave us some legal bullshit. Wasn't justified. So no audit was ever done. And the Indian nations, without recourse, had to sell for literally pennies on the dollar. Pennies. And you know what? It's been probably 10 years, and they still received a penny. They still haven't received a penny.
They never will.
So, they never will. Let this country talk about its heritage. Let it talk about its goals and what it's done for humanity for itself. Let it talk about it. And I'm not saying it hasn't done things. I'm not saying that the United States has not been a venue of great learning and teaching. I'm not saying that the American Revolution was not a stupendous event in the history of humanity. It was the first revolution where the succeeding government drew a line around itself in terms of power. No one had ever done that before. No one had ever tried to curtail its own power. You know why? Because our motherfuckers didn't trust people.
But we've given all that.
And they knew what people did when they got it, when they finally got to government. And then we've had a fucking insurrection. And I won't even call it that. Won't even call it that. During it's tyranny. During the 30s, there was tyranny. They tried to overthrow the United States government in the 30s. After Roosevelt, huh?
Smedley Butler.
Yeah, absolutely, Smedley Butler. And the next time they tried to do it was in 2020. 2000, whatever fucking year it was, doesn't matter. 2020. They tried to do it again. But it wasn't the Power Boys. It was the mob. The mob tried to do it.
Well, if you look back at
tried to do it, David.
Well, if you look at our Constitution, the Constitution is an incredible document in many ways if it's followed. And the creation of the Fed, you could argue, was a violation of the Constitution.
Absolutely. But I want to tell you something about.
But it was allowed.
I understand. No, I understand how power is meted out. I understand the Supreme Court's a bunch of. I understand power. My degree was in political science. I understand motherfucking power. I was reading books on power politics when I was in fucking high school. Right. When I was a political radical, I had already turned my back on the movement. Fuck this shit. We weren't getting anywhere. Getting tired of walking. I knew who had the power. And I know about the Constitution. And I know that Trump's power base is racist and misogynist and selfish. And they believe in him because he said the things that they can't say themselves. Because America is scared shitless. And they blame Mexicans. And they blame gay people. And they blame everyone else that doesn't look at them. They blame women. They're going after teachers. Teachers. Schools. You know who these fuckers are to do that? And to have people go along with it? That's where we are. We're in the dregs. We're in the gutter. We're in the fucking gutter. That's where we are.
Well,
and that's why we're not
since 9/11. You know, you could argue since over 100 years ago, it's been a downhill slope, but definitely since 9/11, it's been blatant. It's been blatant.
You know why? Because 9/11, they made their play.
Oh,
do you
absolutely.
think that thing was?
And there was no pushback.
Muslim terrorists?
No, that was an inside job.
Who died on the plane and whose passports were found
I know.
on the ground. whose passports were
It's a
found.
joke.
And they
It's a
never
joke.
got the black boxes out of there.
Yeah.
Never got the black boxes out of there.
Yeah.
That was controlled demolition. And we bought it hook, line, and sinker because we sold it. And the media did it because it's all about power. Yeah. It's all about power.
And supposedly
you know what?
there was a gold heist as well.
Yeah, there wasn't a gold. There was a bunch of gold in the basement of the building that collapsed without a plane hit it. That building was where the FBI and CIA ran their shit out of, and they had truckloads of gold down there in the basement. If you read my book, no, fuck reading my book. You motherfuckers. Do you ever see that document called Collateral Damage?
It's a document?
Google. Yeah. It's a document. Go to the motherfucker. It's called Collateral Damage, 9/11.
Yeah, I know what collateral.
There's a PDF on it. Yeah. I'll tell you something. I read that thing in 2009. All right? And it stunned me. And it's been up there. And all these people are talking about this and that, but nobody ever goes there because it's been shut down. It's not in your social media. Fuck all those people reading that shit on social media. You know what collateral damage said? It said 70% of the casualties from that day were in 3 agencies. 2 bond trading firms, Cantor Fitzgerald, and Euro Trading in the Tower, Naval Office of Naval Intelligence at the Pentagon.
Yeah, where they happened to be investigating that lost money.
The lost money. That's what 9/11 is.
Yeah.
All right? And they got away with it.
Oops.
But
no backup. No backup.
So I understand the rage of America. I understand, and I know they've been manipulated. And I know who did it. They don't. And I know they've been fooled. You know, I mean, I don't, I know it. So it's all right. We all believe what we believe. But I believe that what we're seeing in this country with a to me, it does, I'm not even going to go there. But what it is that it's beyond our ability to fix. We're not going to fix it, but it is going to fix itself. The faith that I have in reality is huge. David, it's huge. And like I said,
you have more faith than me. I don't have faith in our citizenry. Zero, none.
No, neither do I. I don't have faith in citizenry. I don't have faith in Bitcoin. I don't have faith in all any of this bullshit. I have faith in the universe, and I have faith in humanity as a derivative of the universe, as a derivative of our universal source. I have faith in us, but in the present state, no faith at all. Because we've forgotten it and we don't believe it. We do not believe it ourselves. But because of what I've been through, I mean, I tell you, I've talked to my parents on the other side, and I know it. I've had conversations with my father on the other side. When Martha
when you say you've had conversations, you had conversations at the seance or after?
Yes, at the seance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's what we rolled in when we hit Tucson was this vein. And I know, I mean, it's called spiritualism, like blah, blah, blah. And I've never seen my interviews on Jeffrey Bishlove. He's the guy thinking aloud. He had a PBS series. I've known Jeffrey since 71. And Jeffrey does all this scientific, he has a PhD parapsychology. And I looked at him, I said, Jeffrey, I said, spiritualism doesn't have a high reputation these days. That's what I'm a spiritualist. And he says, no, it doesn't, Darryl. I says, Jeffrey, neither does drug dealing. And I did both. I don't give a fuck. I'm lucky that I know. I'm lucky that Hoyt gave Martha that message. I'm lucky that I went to him. The next year I wrote my book. I Time of the Vulture 2007. All right. Here comes the psychic through Tucson again. Now we're going. Every time he's there, we're going to see the motherfucker. Like it's what he said. Just two. So we go see Hoyt. I've given my paper at the Positive Deviant Network. It's around March. And we're getting a reading. And he said, you're going to be speaking. He's paused because he's trying to get what it is. Before a group of thinkers. I look at you like, what? You know? That summer, we were in Hungary at Professor Antal Fekete's Gold Standard University, which I allude to in my talk on my website, The Greatest Depression. He called him. He motherfucking called him. And when you get stuff like that going on, I mean, that's only him. We had it from other people. We're into a world. I don't care. I understand why people think they do. I thought like that too. And if I hadn't had the experiences that I had, I wouldn't believe either. I wouldn't believe either. You know, and this is before I believed in psychic shit. One of Martha's really good friends in San Francisco, her daughter had run away. All right, had run away, and her daughter was gorgeous, and her friend had a temper like a fucking. This girl had a temper, and she was pissed off. And Sylvia Brown, who was a very famous psychic, wrote a bunch of books, and a lot of her predictions are shit. All right, but you know what? In 2012 or 11, she said, in 2020, people will be wearing masks and wearing rubber gloves in public, and there will be a virus that they don't know what's going on.
And what year was this?
That attacked 2011 or 13.
Oh my God.
I bought the book to see it. I bought the motherfucking book to read it, and there it was.
Wow.
Now, you go Google Sylvia Brown prediction COVID, and they go, you know what you'll see? Oh, she was so wrong on all these other things. She's the fraud as a psychic. To me, holy shit, she hit that one in the nose. I don't care if she was wrong on that.
It's like a broken clock being right twice a day.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, but that was out of the blue.
Yeah.
That was not the 12 o'clock shit. That was something else. I don't care what you were wrong on. Well, what I knew about Sylvia, because in the 1990s, Martha had her friend called her up, and she said that her daughter had run away, and she was really pissed off. And she said Sylvia Brown was giving a talk in San Francisco. Well, Sylvia Brown's expensive, and she's famous as a psychic. So her friend went to see her. And she wasn't
heard the name.
Yeah, BRO. Read that thing about the prediction about COVID. It's on the web, because you'll find what she said. And so her friend Nita goes to see her, just because she's going to make a public appearance, okay, in an auditorium, right? And so she's standing in line, waiting to buy her ticket, and a lady comes up from the back, and she comes to right to her and says, Sylvia has a message for you. Follow me. Didn't charge her. So Nita walks back into the back room, but there's Sylvia Brown, the Sylvia Brown. And she looks at her, she says, your daughter's coming home. She's coming back. But if you lose your temper, you will never see her again.
Wow.
You know what? A month
She
later,
lost her temper.
No.
No?
No.
She actually learned?
She learned. She's got the shit scale. She lost it. She was told what would happen. So she didn't do it. And her daughter, a few years later, has a kid with one of the top NBA stars that everybody knows. He took care of the kid, gave her a fun house, blah, blah, blah. That's it. So that's life. I knew that before we got to Tucson, before we ran into Hoyt. And I still didn't believe it that way, because you only believe to the extent of your experience. There's no other way. That's why we're here. And it was meant, I believe, David, that I believe this shit. It was meant that when I ran across Aisha North's channeling on the web, the manuscript of survival, that I had enough experience in channel material that I wrote down. And
Well,
I just
this
saw
is
it, read it to see if there's anything there. You know?
well, this is what I've always said to Dan is what's the use in waking up and being able to see something if you can't maneuver around the landmines, right? I mean, what good is it? I mean, it's better to be ignorance is bliss, as they say,
No,
right?
ignorant. Yeah. And yeah, it's true. See, Dan can't help himself. Dan is impelled. He's very, very well read. Dan has looked at a lot of shit, all right? But he's stuck on the field. I got into this shit before I heard about the Matrix. I didn't come in it from your generation's angle. We came in it from the hippie angle, which enfolded all of it. We were a new age was coming after all this shit was going to happen. Edgar Casey said that. There are going to be earth changes. We knew we thought we knew. We were fools. We were hippies. That was part of our gestalt. A new age is coming. And I figured, shit, I'll be long dead before it comes. But now I'm 78. And I think it's right around the corner because the crisis is on. And I can see it. And I've been told. I have been told. Those words, Time of the Vulture, they came to me, David. I wrote them down and started studying economics because of it. And I know money.
Well, think about it. John on Patmos was told to write it down, right?
He was told to write it, and he wrote it down.
If you read if you read the book of Revelation, it says, get a pen and paper and write this down.
Yeah. And you know what? I want to tell you something about that. Because in that revelation, it said, in his revelation, it said this.
You could have been one of Jesus' disciples if you lived back then.
I could have been, No,
you were exactly.
The guy was I did what I was supposed to be. You never know. Judas, I think he had a redeeming thing that happened. The story's bigger. But listen, the thing is this. In the Revelations, it is written, for he who has wisdom, the number of the man is the number of the beast. 666. Now, I read those words. And you know what my reaction was when I read them? Wow. I knew I didn't have the wisdom to know that the number of the man, that's numerology. That's deep metaphysics.
The number meant what?
That's from the other realm. Numerology. Okay, it's sort of like Fibonacci at the extreme degree in explanation, mathematics and numbers and reality. All right. When I read that, it was because I read that again. I read that again, but probably 22 when I was looking for answers. You know what I knew? I knew, David, I didn't have the wisdom to know it. I didn't have the wisdom to know the significance of the number of the man and the number of the beast. But you know what? You can Google the number of the man and the beast, and you're going to get a bunch of motherfucking assholes telling you what the fucking thing that means. And I know they don't have the wisdom to fucking toilet paper at the right place. But they think they know. And they'll tell you, this is it. The number of the man, this is what it means. Fuck you, homie. Go and tell somebody else. And you know what? Somebody else was going to listen. Somebody else is going to believe. Because that's their path. They're going to learn whatever they need to learn on their path. My path is a path that very few people have had. Nobody would want it. This is how crazy I am. This is how crazy I am. There I am, busted. 1985, guns came out, fed. I'm out on bail. I don't even know I'm going to get a 10-year prison sentence. I know it's coming down. All right? And I'm back in Marin County, my homie town, right? Back in Marin County. And I'm just waiting for my case to get resolved. And they had a grocery store there in Fairfax called Food Villa. All right? Now you go to food Fairfax, it's yuppie heaven. All the money's out there. Homes that were then 110 grand are now 1,100,000. Money, BMWs. I mean, it's just flooded with money. Okay, this is back in the day. Hippies were there. I'm there. I'm at Foodville. Store's now changed. I think I don't remember the name of it. But I'm sitting there looking at there, and I'm looking in the food counter, and they had a tub of foie gras. Now I don't know if you know what foie gras is. That liver mousse that in France. I mean, this shit is for people like to eat. It's nectar.
Is it like a pate?
All right. Yeah, and they make it with goose liver, richer and shit. It's heart attack food. All right, and they wouldn't let real French pate in the United States because of it's not sterilized. It's raw. It's like I mean, they would even though you can eat it, and the French eat it and don't die. They wouldn't. We got our rules.
Right.
Yeah. Somebody took Econ 1A. It has to be cooked before you let it in. Fine. All right. But I knew because I read this before I started reading about economics. I knew that there was a place in upstate New York called Hudson Farms. All right. And they were making their own foie gras here. The way the French did it. And it's called Les Trois Petits Cochons. The Three Little Pigs. I knew this. Because when I'm into something, I get into it. And there I am at Foodville, staring at this tub of foie, and the label says, Les Trois Petits Cochons, foie gras terrine. Holy shit. I'd only read it. And there it is in front of me. In fucking front of me. Like a dream.
And it's only $100. It's only $150.
Well, yeah. Well, they had a pricing on it, and it said so much by the ounce. And I'm looking at it. It's not cheap. This is, like you said. And I'm thinking, shit, this thing must weigh so many pounds. The whole thing, and a price ounce, how many pounds? Man, it's just too much. And I'm staring at this, and the butcher comes by. Remember when they had the real butchers? The white bib and the stuff like that. It's really chopped the meat down. Butcher comes by, and he sees me staring at the thing. And he goes, "You want to taste?" David, that's like being 12 years old and the girl you went out with say, "You want to feel?"
Yeah, you don't have to ask twice.
You want to feel? So I nodded. And he takes this little thing, oh, heaven. I'd been to France. I'd had the real thing. And then he said those magic words. How thick a slice do you want? Slice? You didn't have to buy the fucking terrain? Yeah. Hey, I've been busted. I'm going to prison. I didn't have much money. I'm living in Marin County. I go, fine. Takes, wraps it up for me, gives it to me, and I'm walking out. This is 1986. You know why I knew this? Because I was busted in November 85, and I went to prison in November or October 86. So this is between them. This is in the summer. And I'm walking out the door, and these words came through my head. I wouldn't trade my life with anyone. And the next thought was, only a fool would trade their life with you. Maybe if somebody had pancreatic cancer and 6 months to live, would trade their life with you with it, And I started laughing. That's how crazy I am. But I had my foie gras. All right? Mm-hmm. And I am lucky. And I have Paris since that time. And things have happened for me. And I was starting my adversity. But out of that adversity, I ran into Howard Hughes' banker who told me this extraordinary story. I meditated so much I actually got enlightened. I mean, I got to a place, David, where people sit in caves and give a family to get to, and they never get there. And I got there, and I knew it. One of the people who heard my interview on Jeffrey's show, he said, I've been meditating all these years, diligently, vegetarian, I do my practice, and I've never experienced Darryl Schoon's experience. And he was a drug dealer. He said, part of me is a little bitter, but isn't that judgment? I knew me. I wasn't expecting that experience. And when it came, nobody had to say what I knew. When you're there, David, wow. I remember when I was in that space, somebody yelled out to me, hey, wake up. And this voice in my head goes, I am awake. It's you who are still asleep. I knew I wasn't that voice, but I know who it was. The voice with no name. The voice I've heard before telling me this isn't it. The voice that gave me the words to time as a vulture. The voice that told me later, be me always. Words that I haven't been able to keep. Advice I haven't been able to keep. But I know that voice. And that's why I have the faith that I have. It wasn't easily won, but I have it.
Well, that was a very good book. Yeah, the book you wrote from prison was a very good book.
Yeah, Light in a Dark Place.
Yeah. You wrote a lot of poems, and it was you could feel the emotions.
You know what's curious about that book? Because I never intended to be a writer. I mean, I really never did. Like I say, well, I never intended to be a drug dealer. A lot of things I didn't intend to be. All right, but
well, like you said earlier, like you said earlier, the when you weren't writing things down, it was like this, right?
Yeah.
Before the affirmations, nobody had a plan.
Yeah. Nobody had a plan. And in fact, it's only, Steve Jobs said something. I wrote, he said something I wrote down on my little thing that I have. And he said this. He said, you know what? You can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only see the dots after that connects everything. He said, he said, once I understood that, I was able to go forward. He said, knowing that only in the future would I see the connections. It gave me the faith. And that's what we're all up against. We're all up against the uncertainty. And Dan's in that place now where he's supposed to stew in the uncertainty. And I know it. You're where you are because you're supposed to be where you are. I mean, that's how deep my belief is. My belief is we incarnate time and time again to learn certain lessons with certain people and go through certain things to learn it. This is way too big for your goddamn believe in Jesus Christ shot and you're either in or out. And your chances to believe in Jesus Christ are shit because you're born in Yemen and your goddamn parents are strict Muslims and you're out there, leading goats around. Well, what are your chances? And you think God runs it that way? That you were lucky because you were born in fucking Alabama and your parents told you that and you believe it because the minister said they do? Fuck you anyway. That ain't how it works. But you can believe it if you want. Everybody gets a chance to believe it.
Well, many parts of life, Darryl, are being in the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the wrong time.
And I believe none of that is by accident. There are lessons to be learned by being in the right place at the right time, and there are lessons to be learned by being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Absolutely.
And that's just how it is. And I've been so lucky that I've been given some of the other stuff. That I was there when Bambi had that poem in the Haight-Ashbury about you can never have it the way you want it. That's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Or hearing Time of the Vulture. That's heavy stuff. Or running into people can look at it and say, boy, Darryl, you actually had presidential invitations? I look at my president, they're on my wall. White House, Darryl Robert Schoon. All right? I look at that and go, wow, I don't know if anybody else has got one of those. But it doesn't mean it's just what it is. It's no different to me than a 10-year prison sentence. And I tell you, I got more out of that 10-year prison sentence than my trip back to Washington, D.C. You get what you get from what you get. And I can only say that I believe, and I didn't believe this before when I was younger, so I understand, when I was younger, I didn't believe this shit. It depended on how I was. But the older I got, the more I saw it, because the more was revealed to me. On my own, I wouldn't have come up with shit, but I've been led. I was led to the Haight-Ashbury. I was led to prison. I was led to hearing those words. I was led to meeting Professor Antal Fekete speaking in Europe on money. I was led to Hoyt Robinette, the psychic, who told me all this shit was going to happen, and it did. And it changed my view. And I know how important that different view is. I do not look at death the way I used to. And I used to. I looked at it the way everybody else did. Holy shit. Not that I want it. But
yeah,
I know
no,
when it
no.
comes, it's going to be what
Yeah.
it has to be. And I know someone's going to come after it.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of death, but I am afraid of how I die, I guess. I don't want to be eaten by a shark or something real painful.
Nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to die with your foot caught in the elevator door.
Right. Oh, my God.
And a version of that. I mean, holy shit.
I've seen videos of
I've had
people who
friends of mine
died that way. Yeah.
But you know what? There was a guy whose life I wouldn't have wished on any. And he's like you. He interviewed me. That's how I met him. And he said he first, and he had seen me on Regina, her show on Gaia. My Time of the Vulture interview in 2022. And he said he had seen me before on Jeffrey Mishlov's show. All right, thinking aloud. And he had first ran across Jeffrey Mishlove in the 1990s when he was in prison, in state prison. And they were allowed to have little radios. And so he's listening to Jeffrey Mishlove. Now, I've known Jeffrey since 1971 when he came in my restaurant in Berkeley. And he eventually got his PhD in parapsychology, author. He had a show on PBS that ran for 14 years. He interviewed everybody, everyone with a PhD. I mean, brilliant. And he said he heard Jeffrey in the 1990s when he was in prison. And his life makes getting your toe caught in an elevator door seem like, yeah. I mean, you wouldn't wish it on anybody. Mm. And this guy is so there with me. He was given a load that I would never say yes to. I would say yes to 10-year prison, but he makes my 10-year prison sentence look like nothing, what he went through. And he came out the other end basically enlightened. Not when he came out, but eventually when he learned how to deal with it. He said he had to learn to forgive everyone, including himself, for what he had done and for what had happened. And he said it was not an easy task, given what he had done. But he did it. And he did it. Because when you talk to him, he's there. He's there. So when people talk about enlightenment, or knowledge or whatever achievement here. I don't, fine. You get what you get. But to me, he takes the cake in my book. Takes the prize because he was given a load far greater than I would even want to even think about. And did what I think task in front of him was to, because he wouldn't have been given that load unless the intention was to learn from it. And that's my belief about incarnations. And it was so deep, so painful, so at the edge that he has my total awe. There's you don't. I think you get to walk this path on earth in many different ways. And if you need a break, you'll get a break. Some people go through and it's like nothing happens to them. They're all right. They live there. Other ones it's like trauma all the way through. All right.
Yeah.
And
most people probably live the same day every day.
And they're just doing what they're supposed to do.
Routines. Yeah.
Because that's how life presents itself to them. Now, maybe at the end of it, there is that reckoning that they didn't take advantage of certain opportunities, like the 10 talents, the parable of the talents. Okay, that maybe somebody was given 1 talent and they ended up with, like my friend, the one who was given very little except a rash of shit, came out with the Olympic prize, and other ones were given a lot and didn't do anything with it. But that's between them and their maker. That's between them and the people who they're in this with, the ones who design it. I'm not there. So that's the truth. I don't, even though my mind judges, I know the judgment is bull. We judge off the get-go. We judge off of appearances. We judge everyone and everything off of appearances. And appearances are as problematic. It's really funny. When I was in prison, I ran into a guy. I knew he was Aryan Brotherhood. I didn't know it, but I could figure it out. I was in Terminal Island, and this was a very high-level security prison. All right? I started out at Lompoc, at a federal camp, which is the lowest level possible. And because of situations, I ended up at one of the highest level prisons. Gun towers, razor wires. The average length of sentence was 20 to 40 years. Okay? So there I am. And because Terminal Island was a hospital destination, it had a hospital there, this guy shows up out of the blue. All right, big guy, probably around 6'4", muscled, white guy. Okay, and he shows up. Now you got to realize that most people at this high-level prison were either black or Latin. It's like the food chain. I started out at Lompoc, the lowest level, and most everybody there was white. So I ended up at the other end of the food chain, at the highest level, 5 to 6. You don't get higher than 6. I was at 5, and the vast majority were doing huge long sentences, and 20 to 40 years was the average sentence, and the vast majority were black or brown. Okay? This guy shows up. He's white. Well, everybody, they didn't say it, but he had this Band-Aid wrapped around his head. And when it eventually came up, there was this indentation. All right. And the rumor was, because nobody ever asked him, I didn't ask him, was that he'd been in some racial gang warfare. Somebody had clobbered him with make a fucking dent on his head. All right. So there he is. Probably Aryan Brotherhood. I didn't know. I didn't ask. Well, I was in the, I'd go down to the library all the time to use their typewriters because I was typing scripts, movie scripts. I started writing movie scripts when I was in prison. All right. So I'm in there typing shit up. And there's this guy. Okay. He's doing something else, probably working on his case, his habeas corpus, or one of those feudal cases that you ask the judge for something. They read it because they're supposed to, and blah, blah, yeah. Tell the law clerk. Law clerk looks at him and said, "What do you think?" And the guy goes, they go, yeah. So, that's
Denied.
That's that's life. All right, whether it's your manuscript or your habeas corpus or whatever. But he was there typing this, and we found ourselves outside one day, just sort of shooting the shit. And I was, you know me. I'll talk about some, and I said, life is really weird. We think we see life as it is, but the truth is, we see what we see. And I said, for example, let's say you really get into Alfa Romeo sports cars. All right, never been into them before, but not only do you get into Alfa Romeos, you like, there's a certain model that you like, and if you do, you will start seeing them out of the blue. You never saw them before, but there goes one. Maybe a week later, you see another one. There they are. I said, that's our life does. We see things a certain way, and we think it's neutral. But the truth is, the way we see life reflects back to us the way we see it. If you think, for example, and this is what it was, like black people are all day, you're going to see every motherfucking asshole black guy, what he does and somebody else. I didn't say that to him, but I think he made that connection on his own. That he had been seeing life in a way that he thought, like we all think, is neutral, but he had pulled from it. Like once you use a matrix, did the thing start looking different? You may have misapplied who the matrix was, but there is a matrix out there. And the more you look at it, the more you begin to fill in the dots. Your dots. That's how we are. That's how this is. And what I heard about this guy later is there was a Course in Miracles group at that terminal island. Now, I don't know did I ever tell you about, I told you about the Course, didn't I? That was that book about peace, you see things a certain way. That book was channeled to a professor of medical psychology at Columbia Medical University in the early 1970s. She was an atheist, and she was Jewish by religion, but she was an atheist, and she wasn't a religious person. Fucking hate. She didn't believe in shit. She didn't believe in God. And she heard a voice back then while she was a professor at Columbia. She told me later, she told somebody, said she thought she was going through a loss, losing her mind. So she called the head of the department, who was her close friend, who she could trust with this information. All right, Bill Tedford. And I know Bill. I met Helen, but I knew Bill later. And Bill was head of the department, her department head. And Bill said, Helen called him up one night, said she was hearing this voice. And it's telling her to take notes, just like John Patmos. Take notes. Okay? And he said, well, what did it say, Helen? And she said, I don't know. I haven't written anything down. I'm afraid to. And Bill said, he had a great sense of humor. Bill said, with all the courage of one who it wasn't happening to, he said, Helen, write it down, and then we'll find out. And if it's crazy, we won't tell anyone. And if it is, we'll find out what it said. And that's what it said. This is the manual for peace. It is a required course.
Yes.
That's
yes.
led to fucking thousands of words. Now, Helen knew, and she had doubts about it when she's going through it. She said, she thought plus the voice identified itself as Jesus later. My God, not only was she an atheist, her parents were Jewish, and she turned away from all that shit. Now she's hearing this voice. But this stuff was amazing that she heard. And Bill, she took it down in shorthand, and next morning Bill said they go in their office and they pull the shades. This is a Columbia, at a university.
Yeah.
And he type it down. Click, click. She said she could turn it off, on and off. She'd be ready to hear. It would pick up. iambic pentameter, just like a fucking dictaphone. Wrote itself. And then when it was over, he said they asked the voice, because she was hearing a voice, what to do. And they said, the world's not ready yet. But you will know it. Somebody will come and you will know it. Until then, wait. And so Bill Tedford, he told me, he said, he was sitting there and he was at a lecture on parapsychology, on healing. And it was given by Judy Scott, who was the fundraiser, the leading fundraiser for parapsychology, psychic research in the United States. And she was giving a talk. And he said, he's listening, he's sitting in the audience, and somebody raised their hand and said, what is healing? And Judy, she's up there giving the talk, Judy Scott. She paused and she says, well, healing is love, isn't it? Isn't that what healing is? And, oh, shit, that's the Course in Miracles. She's got to meet Helen. So he arranged for her to have lunch together. And Judy told me this. And Judy said, because I met Judy. And Judy said, Darryl, I was the leading fundraiser for psychic activity in the United States. I never considered myself psychic. All right? But she said she's having lunch with Bill and Helen at Columbia. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, she turns to Helen and she says, so you hear the voice. Helen looks at her, she shits. And she turns to Bill and she says, we have to show it to her. Bill goes, they take her to the office, they unlock the door, they turn, all this stuff was in a safe. They open up the safe and they bring out this stack of papers, and Judy starts reading it. And she broke down in tears. She broke down in tears. She said she was making all this money professionally. She was at the top of her game. Her life felt empty. And she starts reading, she broke down in tears. And then, consequently, she called Jerry Jampolsky. You can Google Jerry Jampolsky. He wrote a book called Love is Letting Go of Fear. All right, and I know Jerry as a result of this. And Jerry turned to me and he said, Judy calls him out of the blue. And she said she had to read this book that she had found. And he said, Judy, he always thought she was prone to hyper stuff. And she thought, blah, 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 just Judy. He said, I never expected that this would be what it was. It changed his life. And that was a book that I was doing affirmations for peace from. And it rolls into my life. 1976. Translated into 27 languages around the world. That's my background. That's stuff that has happened to me.
Yeah,
That's
you never know.
Yeah. Never.
No, you never know
Never
when the turn, like you said about the future,
No.
you never know when that day is coming. That's the turn.
Never.
Or the change.
You think you're that close and they never happen. And you think you're so far away and you're an adult head and you've never gotten anything in your life, and then boom, the floodgates. The floodgates.
Yeah. Yep. That's why it's very important. I mean, listen, I know it's getting on, so I'll just want to wrap up with, so in your mind, like for people, like we've got a guy in the chat here, big fella, and I've had conversations with this guy in the chats for probably 6 years.
Live long and prosper.